What is up, Call of Duty fans? Welcome back. 2 days in a row, we're already starting off on the right foot. And well, we are a little bit further on in the roster mania period. Again, if you missed the video from yesterday, we went over the big moves that were announced yesterday by the end of the day. Well, really, it was the end of the day on Thursday, but we got through Friday, and now obviously as we're here in Saturday, as I'm recording this and going into Sunday, we are almost done with roster mania, at least as far as we would expect for the CWL period just before London. So let's take a look back as far as where we are and what we've gone over so far. Again, as we take a look at this little speculation chart, going over the teams that made absolutely no changes: Luminosity, Optic Gaming, 100 Thieves, although again, there was a little bit of a move because Pharaoh got moved, so Crowder is technically the coach / sub now. And then you've got United, Heretics, Gen G, Splice, and Reciprocity. As far as we know, and as far as we would expect, there are going to be no more moves made for any of these teams, as they didn't make any moves at all after Fort Worth through the cross-div and now leading up to London. So for all intents and purposes, those 8 teams are set in stone. Now, changes that have been made. We went over yesterday about Denial, UYU, Team Envy, and Elevate. There were speculations that there could possibly be some moves with Midnight Esports. As far as I'm gathering so far, it looks like all of those moves have been completed. The only thing that really changed was just a couple of substitute moves, really, which it brought Knight over from free agency into the substitute spot. I had interpreted the Midnight tweet that he was going to be moved into the starting spot, but that was not at all the case. So he'll be coming in as the substitute spot by the looks of it, and Saints will be taking away. So a little bit interesting situation going on with everybody going on there. I don't know if Panda is going to be moved into a starting role or what's going on with this team. But as far as we'd anticipate, there's no more moves being made with Midnight. And then, of course, throughout today and yesterday, we heard all the information that solidified Enigma6 and the new FaZe Clan roster, which will be coming in for that absolutely disastrous scene of Red Reserve. Still making moves. There is one more team still awaiting some moves to be confirmed. That is just Evil Geniuses, and thankfully we've got nobody left in the Only God Knows tab. So let's just go over what we missed from yesterday, or what you may have missed from yesterday, very briefly. We'll start with UYU quickly. Again, Knight gets sent over to Midnight Esports as it looks to be a sub role, and that means that Royalty will be moved into the starting roster. This was a team that went 1-4 in the cross-divisional play, and they'll be sitting in Group D at London, which includes a group of Midnight, Heretics, and Elevate. A group that honestly they should be able to get themselves warmed up with and hopefully see if this roster is actually hitting the tune that they want to play. Over at Team Envy, this is the second team we talked about. Apathy and Assault are gone. Assault were put on restricted free agency. Apathy will for sure be going to Evil Geniuses. Bringing in their place, it'll be Decimate and Pharaoh from G2 and 100 Thieves, respectively. Again, this is a 5th place team in Division B. They'll be going up into Group C at London, which includes E United, the FaZe Clan spot now. It says to be determined. I forgot to change the graphic. Apologies. And Evil Geniuses. So this, again, should be a pretty solid pool for them. It just comes down to how good is this FaZe Clan team going to be? How good is this Evil Geniuses team going to be? Because we still are waiting some moves from them, and we already know what we're going to get with the United, at least so we would anticipate. Things going a little bit more crazy with Denial, again, dropping the entirety of their French roster with the exception of Zeke, who will be sticking around as the substitute spot. And bringing into their place, you'll see Brack from Accelerate, Alex from Team Sween, and then Rated Joe and Bance, the trio from Red Reserve, as Red Reserve's whole spot was a debacle. They'll be playing in Pool B with Gen G, Splice, and Luminosity, a very difficult pool, and we kind of give it our opinions on what this roster looked like, what we're expecting from this roster in our previous video. So again, if you missed it, go back and check that really quickly. And then, of course, we already talked about the fact that Accelerate is no longer a team in the CWL. The spot got bought out by Elevate, and that roster, which was previously Brack Skies, Emery's, Jet Li, and Profizi, Brack and Jet Li will be gone, and you'll be getting in Whalers and Breezy. It's a very interesting roster take. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about this. They'll also be in Pool D, the kind of mishmash pool at London. And now let's get into what we're here for, which is the new teams that have made moves. One new team in specific. Let's start talking about FaZe Clan first and foremost. Again, if you're not familiar or you don't remember back to what this roster was at the Pro League qualifier, it was Zuma, Attach, Crowder, Priesta, and Celium. Now, since then, there have been a handful of moves, most notably Attach over to Evil Geniuses. Obviously, we know about Priesta and Crowder for quite some time have been at 100 Thieves. What you need to be worrying about and what's most important is who's coming into this squad. A sim will actually be brought up from the FaZe Clan Black team. And then mixed with that will be the additions of Scraps and Zero from Red Reserve. So the full roster will read as Zuma, Celium, Sim, Scraps, and Zero. Again, this was a team that only finished top 16 at CWL Vegas. They placed third in Pool C at Vegas in specific, and then they lost to both Accelerate in the winner's bracket of the play-in bracket for the CWL qualifiers, and then overtime in the loser's bracket of the Pro League qualifiers. It was not a great look for FaZe Clan whatsoever. This is the first time we'll get another look at these guys since really the FaZe Clan Black team that we saw when they were at Fort Worth in that championship run through the open bracket. Now, this is a really interesting roster because you pick up Scraps and Zero. Great. That's wonderful. Very flexible players that can do a lot for the team. Sim has been a little bit more one-trickish. So the question mark with this roster for me comes down to who's going to hold down the AR role. Will it be Zuma or will it be Sim? You figure Selling will be running a flex role where he can go back and forth between Sog or Maddox. Scraps, obviously flex role. Zero, more of an SMG style player. So this roster kind of all sits like in the scope of flex role. Like, everybody essentially can flex on this team, and we've seen them run different weaponry between Sogs, Maddoxes, and maybe the occasional ICR here or there. The biggest question marks becomes, how does this team do on long-range maps? Talking about things like, for instance, you obviously have to consider Arsenal throughout every map and mode combination, but then also things like frequency on Search and Destroy. Really, Search and Destroy as a whole, because ICRs are so important when it comes to locking down long lines of sight. So there's a lot of question marks for me about, is this team going to be able to step up and be a complete squad with the right weaponry and loadouts? Because it feels like it's a little bit of a one-trick roster. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad roster, because actually I'm really happy with this roster talent-wise. It just comes down to who's going to play what roles, who's going to play what specialists as well. Keep that in mind. That's a very integral part of the game, especially now that you do not earn your specialist weaponry over time. You only earn it off of score. So that means you're going to be getting your specialist less often, which puts extra weight on being extra effective with it. You don't get that chance to potentially charge it a second or sometimes even a third time that we saw previously. So a lot of pressure on this team, I think, to perform. And a lot of people have been keeping their eye on FaZe Clan as, again, the upset of them not being the CWL in the first place. I think the expectations for this roster and this organization as a whole are very, very high. So it'd be interesting to see how well they do at London, as they will be, let me take a look here as far as where they'll be. They'll be in Pool C as well. So they'll be with E United, Team Envy, and Evil Geniuses. That's a very difficult pool. For a team that's being put together at the last minute. Obviously, Envy is a solid team that has made a couple of additions and subtractions, but it mostly makes their team better. FaZe Clan just being put together, they're going to be, I think, in the same ballpark as the conversation that we'll have about Evil Geniuses once we figure out what that roster 100% will be. Then we'll switch over to our other team that made their full announcement as far as what their roster looks like. That's going to be Enigma6, previously General, Diabolic, Kismet, Chino, and Frosty. This team was very interesting, to say the least, because at Fort Worth they finished top 6, and then they came out in the cross div and didn't win a game. So it's interesting to see, because this team has played very well in front of crowds, but not very well on the remote LAN stage with the regular season. Only 6-11 overall, 30-41 since the CWL started. They performed better again at Fort Worth. But the biggest question mark comes down to, will this team actually do what they need to do to be a major contender? They went 2-1 in their pool from the winner's bracket. They were able to get past Reciprocity in the winner's bracket championship bracket before losing to Luminosity, and then they would lose to 100 Thieves as well. So this team, that previous roster, looked solid, but obviously as we get to the regular season, things aren't going so well. So Chino and Diabolic will be dropped to free agency, and they'll be picking up Jet Li and God RX in their spot. So now you're looking at General, Kismet, Frosty, Jet Li, and God RX. This team is dangerous. Very, very dangerous. The biggest problem, I mean, Diabolic was not able to really help out Kismet as much as I think everyone wanted him to up front in the SOG line. And then General, who was most notably their ICR previously, was kind of clashing with running a Maddox when Chino was the main ICR player there. So now you're getting a situation for Enigma6 where you have a dedicated ICR in General. You've got your flex line of really good combination of Frosty and God RX, and then your upfront SMG gameplay should be very dangerous with the high output potential of Jet Li now with Kismet. This team's dangerous. It just comes down to, can they actually get their stuff together to be the team that we all want them to be come London? Because again, it's a quick turnaround, and they're in a very difficult group. They'll be playing in Pool A versus 100 Thieves, Optic Gaming, and Reciprocity. Good luck. That's all I can really say about that. It's gonna be a tough one, flat out. I wouldn't be surprised to see them play spoiler to a couple of teams, and looked really solid, but at the same point, I wouldn't be surprised if they just flop because it's their first time out on a major stage on foreign ground too. Keep that in mind. Reciprocity is going to have a huge crowd behind them, as well as the players that were previously on Red Reserve. So you're not going to get your same kind of optic boost, I imagine, but still you're going up against extremely good teams in this pool. So I don't know if I have my high hopes as far as them getting out of the pool in the winner's bracket, but could they potentially make a run here? I think this roster is very deadly. Just comes down to getting their stuff together. Now, I will just do this, and I normally don't, but I'm just going to report on the rumored changes that we're hearing from Evil Geniuses. The other two players that we're still waiting to be confirmed, which we assume would happen by Monday, would be JCap and Phantoms, are currently the two players that are rumored to be going to Evil Geniuses. So a couple of question marks as far as what that full roster will look like, but those are the two players that are rumored to be coming in. It's just one of those things that they've been scrimming with these guys, and everyone pretty much knows, but Evil Geniuses has not come out flat out and said, this is what it's going to be. Maybe there's some contract issues. Who 100% knows? Not I, said the fly. So that's going to wrap things for this video here. I will be doing one more RosterMania video when we do get the Evil Geniuses roster confirmed. I'm going to be going through the pools more specifically as well with those rosters and kind of giving you guys a full picture as far as what you should expect from these rosters and what their output potential could potentially be in a short turnaround coming up just in the beginning of May for London. Now, other things coming up this week, Tuesday, mark your calendars, the CCL, the Collegiate Call of Duty League, has their grand finals Tuesday night at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. You're not going to want to miss that one. It's going to be a really hot showdown. I'll be casting the action for that. You're not going to want to miss it. And then beyond that, I will be doing one more power rankings video just before London. And keep your eye out for Checkmate Gaming. I believe there's going to be a pro down coming up just before London. At least that's the goal. And you might see a familiar face casting that too. You know what I'm saying? That's all I got for you guys. Hey, I got a haircut, by the way, if you're still watching. Look at that. Looks all nice and fresh. Probably wondering what happened to the beard and all that. We trimmed up. We're looking a little bit more approachable and a little bit more appeasing to the eyes. That's the way it goes. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. And, of course, if you like the content, hit the subscribe and ring the bell to get notifications when videos do pop up. I've been Shift. You've been you. That's been the recap on RosterMania. Until next time, hope you keep holding it down. So long.